We are back, and we are joined now by Garrett Graff, historian, Pulitzer Prize finalist, writer of the Doomsday Scenario newsletter, author of many books, including his most recent, The Devil Reached Towards the Sky, and his latest piece for Doomsday Scenario is entitled America Tips into Fascism. Garrett, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
So, I love the title of your piece, America Tips into Fascism, because the tipping kind of evokes something about the present moment. Like it's like that feeling when you're on the top of you're in like the front car of a roller coaster and you're about to go over the big dip and you're at the front. You're already down there, right? And you're just anticipating the big drop. That's like honestly what it felt like for me when I was reading your piece, trying to pinpoint this current moment. Why do you think we're at the moment here where we're tipping in, even though I know your piece talks about how we're not gonna be able to pinpoint one moment, but
Yeah.
this period is the moment.
Yeah. I think you know, as you said, we've been anticipating that this is the direction that the country was going to slide under Trump, not just for months, but for years. I mean, this has been a long standing warning about Trump's authoritarian and fascist designs on our country and our government. But I think a lot of people sort of wrongly have thought about this as if there was going to be like a light switch that turns on and off, that sort of everything before this moment is democracy, everything that comes after this moment is authoritarianism. And that's, of course, not really the way that it happens. And what I think we have watched over this last month, really just over the last 2 weeks, is this moment where we have just sort of tipped over the edge into a new era where our country is fundamentally different. That does not mean that this is irreversible. That does not mean that we are a full-blown authoritarian state. But I think we are now living in an authoritarian country in a way that even just 2 weeks ago, before the DC police takeover and the deployment of the military to DC, I think we were not yet at that moment. And for me, it's been this accumulation over the course of this month of these little moments and big moments. The DC police takeover, the search of John Bolton's house, and others that made me feel like this week when we wake up in the morning, our country is fundamentally different.
Another instance where it gives us that indication, and you write about corporate titans lining up to pay tribute to Donald Trump, but Bill Gates was just at the White House, and the New York Times just reported that the Gates Foundation has quietly stopped sending tens of millions to like major Democratic consulting firms. This is just another example of like these industry leaders and these very wealthy people kissing the ring. Even the Intel stake thing, kind of converting a grant to an equity purchase without any conditions except to kind of merge Trump's influence and curry favor with the use of taxpayer funds with a major company like this in order to secure his support. The only thing you can really draw a comparison to is like the crony capitalism of, say, Putin or other capitalistic but authoritarian governments like that.
Absolutely. And again, I think it's the accumulation of all of these moments and actions over the last couple of months that lead to this conclusion that we are now in a fundamentally undemocratic, authoritarian moment in America, because this is not what America has looked like before. And that we see this, Donald Trump trying to control the economy personally, with, as you said, taking a stake in Intel, levying an unconstitutional export tax on NVIDIA in exchange for it being able to sell advanced computer chips to China. These moments where, Tim Cook shows up from Apple in the Oval Office with literal gold to hand to the president, to help curry favor. And then these moments where we see the president really trying to dictate our lives in his one true vision of what Donald Trump believes our country should be like. This is not, authoritarian control is not just about the police and the military and business. It's about our it's about his war on the Smithsonian and sort of declaring that he alone gets to decide how our history gets taught. It's what books we read in the libraries that he is forcing to be removed. It's his control over our arts in our lives and his takeover of the Kennedy Center in DC. And then even this weekend, I think we lose track of just like how crazy so much of this is. And over the weekend, we had this moment where he's like trying to dictate to Major League Baseball that Roger Clemens needs to be inducted immediately into the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, this is our control of our arts, our books, our literature, our history, and even our sports.
He's putting total and totalitarian. He was trying this with Washington because they're trying to move the NFL stadium back to the old RFK site. He's trying to make that conditional on the Commanders changing their name back to the racial slur that it was previously. He puts the total in totalitarian, yes, and is constantly omnipresent, like in our lives. You include some excerpts from the Declaration of Independence to make your point in your piece, and it's striking how I'm not one to fetishize the founding fathers, but many of the warnings delineated there are exactly to a T stuff that we're experiencing right now with Donald Trump. Like, I have it printed out here, just some of the things that you list. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of government. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So just some of the piece, people can read the whole thing, but just some of the like incredibly, eerie comparisons there, it's difficult to escape.
Yeah, and again, like we're only still 6, 7, 8 months into this moment. Like, I think part of what I find fascinating is the extent to which he is speed running the abuses of power that we have previously literally had a revolution to fight back against. That he this is not years of accumulated grievances by the colonies. This is sort of stuff that he is doing on an almost weekly basis at this point.
The Democratic Party does not escape your critique in your piece. You tell a story about Eric Cantor basically being willing to crash the U.S. economy, knowing that Obama was coming into power, and how the Republicans really embraced nihilism at that moment. But the Democrats have basically pretended that streak of the party has not kind of taken over for years. What is your view of the Democrats and their role in this moment, especially the national federal Democrats?
Yeah, so I think in exactly as you lay out that question, to me, there's sort of a distinction between some very brave and forthright and clear-eyed leadership that we have seen at the state level from Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker, among others, held up against the national Democrats in Congress, who have been sort of stunningly quiet as the president deploys armed military to take over the city of Washington and the national capital. And I think we need to. It is very obvious to everyone that this takeover is being done to the people of DC and not to aid them. And you see that in the way that in DC, restaurant reservations are down, monuments are deserted, parks are deserted. Like, people do not want to be out on the street for fear of running into these armed agents of the state. And the fact that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are unable to sort of muster the outrage necessary to say, hey, we shouldn't have the military occupying our capital, and I'm going to sort of hold some press conference in DC to oppose that is really stunning to me. And you see echoes throughout all of this of the sort of creaking gerontocracy that has beset the Democratic Party in recent years, where Eleanor Holmes Norton, the nearly 90-year-old longstanding DC delegate to Congress, has not even been seen in public since the military was deployed to the city, and that when her office released her sort of initial statement, they even put out a photo of her at an unrelated protest to make it seem like she was active in a moment where she is clearly not able to actually act in the capacity that the residents of DC need her to be acting right now.
It's psychotic, and I know you have to run, so just really quickly, last question. Can you just compare this moment and the resilience of our systems now to, say, Nixon during Watergate? I know you wrote a book on this. So how was our response? Worse, better? Where are we at in comparison to that?
Yeah, so we're in a much worse situation than we ever were in Watergate. And I say that because of what we've seen from the actions of the other two branches of government, both Congress and the Supreme Court, both of which also obviously under the control of the Republicans at this point, where they are aiding and abetting the national slide towards authoritarianism in a way where when you go back to Watergate, when you look at Nixon and Congress in that period from 1972 to 1974, it was very clear at that time that Republicans in Congress understood that their first duty was to the Constitution. It was to upholding their role as members of a co-equal branch of government to exert checks and balances on the executive branch and to stop its abuse of power. Whereas, of course, over the course of this year, we have seen repeatedly Congress not care when the president takes prerogatives to ignore congressional law. And the Supreme Court under John Roberts has written Trump effectively a blank check as president for immunity for criminal actions.
Well, not super encouraging, but a great discussion. I'm sorry. I know you have to run. I wish we could have you on for longer, maybe another day. Garrett Graff, everybody check out the Doomsday Scenario newsletter and his latest piece, America Tips into Fascism. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.